before the arenas, before the awards.
This is Before Nashville Live. Have a question for our guest? Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
Hey, everybody. How you doing on a Monday evening? I know it doesn't seem like it should be Monday, but it is. So just in case you're wondering, and I've got a great guest tonight. As you guys know, I watch a lot of the shows that are like the competition music shows and things like that. And this guy was on one a few years ago, and you'll probably remember his name. And he was one of my top picks for that year. And so I'm really excited to have him on. But his name is Chris Kroeze. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. That's the closest thing I can come to the voice. So.
That's perfect. It works out great that way.
It sounds really good. But so I've been doing some research and stuff on you and trying to find out some different things. And one of the things that I wanted to kind of get into, we'll talk about some of the other stuff later on. I'm not going to get real in depth to some of that tonight or right now. But I do want to know what got you into music in general. I mean, it was kind of a family thing, I think, at one point.
Yeah. So I mean, growing up, like we camped a lot when we were kids, and Dad always kept an old like Gibson Hummingbird knockoff from Japan. That he bought when he was in the military. He was in Texas, and he found it at a pawn shop and bought it. And he played guitar through the years. He didn't play much, just a few chords sitting around the fire, and I was fascinated with that guitar since I was a little kid. And we weren't supposed to touch it because it wasn't a toy. And so every chance I got, I'd be over in the corner just trying to strum the strings and see what I could make them sound like. And I think my parents saw that I was really interested in that, and they bought me a cheap little guitar from like Sears or something when I turned 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad put little like the little like the sticky notes,
right?
Like the sticky, he'd take a scissors or a razor blade and cut little squares out of the sticky part of the sticky notes and use them as stickers and put them on the fretboard to show me where my fingers would go.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so I just kind of he taught me a few chords, and then I started like diving into listening to a ton of music and like trying to replicate what they were doing, like what I was hearing from these tapes on my little guitar. And so kind of learned how to play by ear that way, I guess.
Wow. Playing by ear is something that I've never been able. I mean, we were talking earlier, and I told you, I play drums. Drums are an easy. I say they're easy. There's probably a lot of drummers out there that would disagree, but learning the drums by ear is very easy. Guitar, not so much. You got so much going on, and trying to get the chords and the notes, depending on if you're more a rhythm style player or a lead style player.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of your dad helping you out and putting the little Post-it notes on there. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, it worked out awesome that way.
When you got older, were you in a band or anything in school?
Oh yeah. I started playing. I think the first talent show I ever did was in 3rd grade. Got up there and played I think my grandparents still have a video of it, but it's like I went up there and played, like Jesus Loves Me and Amazing Grace, like just the melody on the guitar, and then like Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then I went into like Back in Black or something. And yeah, so that was my first like on stage experience, I guess. But then I played all those talent shows in school. We had one every year or whatever, and played in church a little bit, and then started singing. I think in 7th grade I sang for the first time in front of anybody.
Right.
But I used to sing with the radio, and like I wanted to know if I was a good singer, but I couldn't tell because it sounded good in my head. But I couldn't tell if I was actually a decent singer or not, because it's hard to hear what you sound like from someone else's perspective. And so my dad had this little My dad had this little audio tape thing recorder, like for recording bird sounds and stuff.
Right.
And so I would listen to the radio, and like if the song came on that I knew, I'd record myself singing with it, and then listen to it, and then I'd just destroy the tape.
So you wouldn't
That
get
was
busted out for using this stuff.
probably, no, I don't think that I just didn't want anybody to hear me sing.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, it took me a long time to get over that.
So when did you get into writing songs?
I mean, I guess I had a band in high school. We wrote some songs with that, but I mean, they weren't good. But I suppose no one starts out being a good songwriter.
Right.
So I mean, in high school, and then I wrote a bunch in college, and then I went a lot of years without writing because I was just playing covers in the bars every night, and so that was what I did. So I wasn't writing songs because in my brain, no one wanted to hear them anyway. So
Right. So
yeah.
with you writing songs in your early bands, did you record any of them? Have you been able to go back and listen to any and maybe thought, maybe I could rework that a little bit?
We did record some of them, but I'm sure they sound. I wouldn't even know where to look to find them. Um, it was all digital stuff, so it was on a hard drive or something somewhere.
Mhm.
But none of it ever saw the light of day.
It was labeled for our ears only.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So, who were some of the influences musically that you grew up listening to?
Well, I mean, naturally, as a guitar player, I mean, Skinnerd was huge. Just all that guitar heavy music. Um, so that was like some of the first stuff that was like one of the first tapes. I'll actually, no, that's not the first tape. The first tape that I ever dove into and like really, really just obsessed over was Chuck Berry. It was, I had one of those double, one of those tape players with two receivers.
Right,
So
right.
you could put a blank in one side and record one to the next.
Uh-huh.
And so I would record, I would go to the front of the blank tape and I would play Johnny Be Good and record it on that tape until the tape was full. And I'd just keep doing Johnny Be Good. And so I had a tape of Johnny Be Good for like 2 hours. And
Okay.
so, yeah. And that's still how I learn music. If I have to learn a song for anything, I just listen to it on repeat for a couple hours. And then I've usually got a fairly good idea of how it goes.
That's a great song too. I mean, one that's really good to listen to as as an aspiring musician. Johnny Be Good. That was always one of my favorites that he did. I love that song even
Yeah, and that
today.
guitar intro, it's just so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit. Let's kind of go up into the modern day some on your music and stuff. But
Yeah.
what's the uniqueness of your music that makes people want to listen that you feel is what makes it so unique?
That's a tough question. I mean, I would say like it's kind of hybrid, if that makes any sense. It's like it's
Mhm.
country, but I mean, when we're playing live, I mean, I'm playing country with a rock band, and which is kind of my style, I guess. I mean, I grew up listening to everything, and country was always just kind of what resonated the most with me. But I love all kinds of music. I mean, I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, and AC/DC, and Guns N' Roses, and all that stuff. So I mean,
Right.
I think it's just kind of an eclectic mix of everything I've listened to kind of comes out.
And so that gives it that little twist that people just want to listen because it's you, but there's so many things that are wrapped up in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose that's a fair way to put it. Yeah.
Um, so as a songwriter, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask, but as a songwriter, what is one song that you have ever said to yourself, damn, why didn't I write that?
Hmm. Yeah. Let's see. There's a lot of them, really. Man, I mean, it might like I'm kind of going off topic, I guess, because that's a tough question to answer. But I mean, that kind of resonance with me with music, like the first time I ever experienced like that kind of connection with music was
Hmm.
2007. My brother and I went to a Walmart and saw this CD with a mason jar on it, like a dirty, broken mason jar on it, and it was Zach Brown Band,
Hmm.
and it was prior to Chicken Fried hitting radio. The CD was at Walmart, and
Right.
so we dove into that hardcore. And that guy is unbelievable. He's a great songwriter, crazy good guitar player, and he plays a nylon string, which is cool. And
Right.
so, man, a specific song though, like, I mean, one of my favorites, I guess, is like "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain," specifically the Willie Nelson version of it.
Right.
That's
Right.
one of the first songs I ever learned, and I play it almost every show still.
So it would be safe to say that that's one of the ones that you would say that
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll probably think of more after we're done. I'll be like, "Oh man, why didn't I say that?"
So you were talking earlier about being in a cover band and things like that, and then you're talking about playing "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain," and aside from that song, what is one cover tune that you just love to play in your sets?
Oh man, um, I'm a sucker for big ballads. So, I mean, "Desperado" is a
Mm,
one that's really fun to play. Um, and then it depends on the night. A lot of nights we will end the night with like Ted Nugent "Stranglehold into a Whole Lot of Love" or something. Zeppelin.
that would be an interesting version to hear. I could actually
Yeah,
hear that in my head.
yeah.
That's what's so weird about it. I can actually hear that. So that's pretty awesome. Um, now if you had a choice to go on tour with two bands, what two bands would it be?
That's a no-brainer for me. Zach Brown Band and Vince Gill.
Great guitars, great vocals,
Oh
great
yeah.
songwriting all
I
around.
don't know if you
Yeah.
have you ever seen the Zach Brown Band live or anything?
Only about 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's an unbelievable band. And
yeah,
then
those guys.
Vince Gill's band is unbelievable too, but it's completely different scenario. He's like acoustic guitar. He plays a telly. He's got another telly player. He's got a fiddle player and a pedal steel player and a drummer and some background
Mhm.
singers. So I mean, it's like classic country instrumentation where Zach Brown is like at times he's like 4 guitars, bass, hand percussion, keys, organ, fiddle, drums, and it's just a wild show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
first time I
amazing.
saw him was in Memphis, and he took up every bit of that humongous stage that they had.
Oh yeah,
It was but it was one of the best shows that I have it's definitely in my top 3, I mean, honestly, and then I've
yeah,
gone back to see him a couple other times and
and
same
he does
thing. It
some pretty cool covers too.
Yeah.
Like when I was there, they did "Cashmere" by
Mhm.
Zeppelin, which was
Yeah.
super cool. Yeah,
Yeah, and then they do some Metallica and
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
which is cool, I love it. I mean, I think that's awesome. Um, if I were to take your phone and look just at the stuff you're listening to, who would be your top 10 artists
Right
that you're
now,
yeah.
top 10. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to name off 10. I've been listening to Tyler Childers quite a bit lately.
Mhm.
I like him. He's got some cool stuff. Zach Top. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
He's out of Nashville. He's crazy good. He's like, it sounds like the first song that I heard him do. I heard it on Instagram or something and went and found it on Spotify. It was, um, "There's the Sun," I think it's called, And when the first time I heard it, I was like, is this a George Strait cover or something? Like, it's just, they sound like classic, awesome songs that have been around forever, but they're all new.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he's like, best way I could describe him would be, I always tell people he's like if Brent Mason and Keith Whitley and Vince Gill were rolled into one dude.
Oh, wow.
He's crazy. Crazy good.
Right.
And then what else?
Oh.
I listen to a lot of Patsy Cline. I love Patsy Cline.
Okay.
Like an obsession at times. And then Zach Brown Band's always on my list up there. What else is on there? Skinner's probably on there too. The Eagles. There's some like playlists of like late 60s, early 70s rock, all that, like basically the soundtrack from Remember the Titans, if you know what I'm talking about. All that Vietnam War era music.
Right. That's some good stuff. I mean, all the stuff from then, you're talking the Jerry Lee Lewis and
Yeah.
a lot of the 50s type of rock is what I like to call it. And I may not just be thinking of, Remember the Titans, but there's a lot of good ones that have that kind of stuff in them.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me get back up here to a few different. I'm looking at some of my questions because I always like to make sure. Here's another good one that I'd like to ask. If you could sit down to dinner with one artist who is no longer with us, they've already passed on, who would it be and what would the conversation consist of?
Man, that's a tough one. An artist that is no longer with us, what would the conversation be? Probably Ronnie Van Zant.
Mm,
And just, I don't know what the conversation would be, but it'd probably be like, what's next? Like those guys were just getting going.
right.
And just think of how that band could, the way they took over the world with the short time they had.
Oh my,
Imagine
yeah.
if they, like I'd probably be picking his brain. What songs do you have that you haven't recorded yet? Imagine the songs he had that he didn't put out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are one of those things where you always wonder if somewhere there's not a lost tape that somebody
There's gotta
had of,
be.
even demos or where they were goofing around in the studio and going, hey, let's do this, some little
Yep.
riff and then do a song.
Yep.
You know?
But that one's crazy. That's because I grew up with Skinner, and I knew about the plane crash when I was a kid, but I didn't really know that much about it. And then like just doing some research as I got older, I was like, man, they were like, they'd been on the road. I mean, they'd been successful then for like what, a year, and then yeah, that's crazy.
And then it just
Yeah.
like that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Now brother carries it on, which is cool.
Mhm.
We've gotten
Yep.
open for those guys, and they were nothing but awesome to us. And I got to
Oh,
meet
wow.
Gary Rosington, and I got to sit with an acoustic guitar and play a couple of my favorite Gary Rosington licks with Gary Rosington, which was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a memory that you will never forget right there.
I know. My biggest regret is not having him sign my guitar.
Right.
Because I think, what did he pass this last year? I think.
Yeah, it was sometime this past year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Back in was it the summer? Has he been gone a year yet?
I don't know if it's been I think it might have been, it was summer or spring or something.
Yeah.
But I got to see Willie Nelson this year. That was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
I didn't get to meet him or anything, but that was a really cool concert. It was Molly Tuttle, Trampled by Turtles, a band from Minnesota, and then Robert Plant with Allison Krauss, and then
Wow.
Willie Nelson, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that Robert Plant and Allison Krauss duet. I've got the first album they put out.
Yeah.
And they put out a subsequent one since, and that one I haven't found. But that first one, man, I could put that on repeat. It's just so good. It's actually a CD.
Yeah, when I first heard about that project, I was like, I couldn't picture Robert Plant's voice on a bluegrass album, and then I heard it, and I'm like, it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah,
and they did the Zeppelin song "Rock and Roll" at that concert too. So that was like, I was like, I may never get the opportunity to hear Robert Plant sing Zeppelin songs ever again.
Right.
Like it was so cool.
And that's what's so odd about that particular combination, because like you said, Robert Plant on a bluegrass album, when you think about all the great stuff that they've done, and just, oh my gosh, and his voice and just the strength of it, and then he still has that strength, but it's a lot softer.
It's a lot softer, yeah. A lot more compression on it these days.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, it's so cool. And he still sings really, really well, and like he's not young either. Like,
no, I don't know how old. No, but...
Yeah, Willie's got a song that he put out with his son. I think his son's name must be he must call himself like Particle Kid or something. And they wrote this song. His son wrote the song, and he wrote it as he said he was trying to write like a Willie Nelson song, for his dad, and his dad kind of told him yeah, write me a song, write a song, but you're writing for me. And it the hook of the song was, if I die when I'm high, I'll be halfway to heaven, and it was super cool. But Willie sat on a stool the whole show, and he stood up one time during the show, and it was in a line in that song. It said, "People my age are expected to fade." And then he stood up and put his hand up, and it just, "Catch me if you can." It was just, the whole 20,000 people just lost their minds.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, that was a once in a lifetime deal. He's 90 years old.
Right, but he's still going strong.
Still doing it. Yeah.
That's the thing, man. So before we get into a couple other issues, I can't believe our time is going by so fast. This is unbelievable. I want to take a moment, actually about 3 minutes or so, because you've got a song that you just released that I really like, and I've been listening to it, and it's kind of I would call it like a anthemic type of song, but it's also a very well disguised heartbreak. How's that?
That's perfect, actually. Yeah.
And so we're gonna get into that, and the song is called "Crushing Cans," and you're gonna be a little, I'm not gonna say shocked, but it's not anything like imagining today's artist trying to do that song. It could never happen, because as soon as you hear "Crushing Cans," to me it's a total different vibe than what actually comes out with the song that you've done, which I love the song. Right. So we're going to do that. This is called "Crushing Cans," and it's Chris Kroeze on Before Nashville.
There ain't no what to do plan for heartbreak when it happens. Just rounded up some buddies, went and rented us a cabin. We're circled up, I'm tipping back that first one right now, saying goodbye only way I know how. Crushing cans with all my friends. Girl, this is how our story ends. I'm getting drunk and moving on, crushing cans till they're all gone. If you wonder what I'm doing, girl, you probably are. light and domestic, like that 8-point on the wall. Picked that day to be a deer. This bush light picked a bad night to be a beer. Cause I'm crushing cans with all my friends. Girl, this is how our story ends. I'm getting drunk and moving on, crushing cans till they're all gone. Yeah! Alright, check it out. I just crushed a 6-pack, I'm ready to roll in this Adirondack with nowhere to go. I'm pouring one out for the heart that she broke. Yeah, you could be drinking alone, but I'm crushing cans with all my friends. Girl, this is how our story ends. I'm getting drunk and moving on, crushing cans till they're all gone. I'm crushing cans with all my friends. Girl, this is how our story ends. I'm getting drunk and moving on, crushing cans till they're all gone. I'm crushing cans till you're all gone. All right, buddy. 1, 2, 3,
All right, that's Chris Kroeze and Crushing Cans. Now I'm gonna say my piece on that song real quick.
All right.
Zach Brown Band. Let me see. I had somebody else in mind. Gosh. I can't think of who it is now. I should have wrote it down while we were on camera, but I had somebody else in mind. But Brown Band definitely at the end where you start picking it up. Zach Brown Band influence, big time.
Absolutely. That was so fun in the studio too, because the song ended and I was like, man, it just doesn't feel right just to end right there. And my producer Nick is actually the guy playing fiddle on it and singing the bridge with me. And he was just like, what if we just do like this Alabama-ish jam session out on the end, you know? And,
right.
So it just kind of came together. And those guys in the studio in Nashville are so good. They just took it and ran with it. We just ripped it out. It was awesome.
Yeah, was with the guys that you worked with in Nashville and the experience that you had you experienced anything like that prior to like The Voice or anything else?
No. Well, yeah. I mean, I first time I recorded in Nashville was 2014.
Okay.
And so long time before I was ever on The Voice. And yeah, just but I mean, not to this caliber, back then I didn't get the guys that I got now. I didn't know anyone in Nashville at that point. And so I just went down there and got whoever they had in there already on a session and then just kind of piggybacked off of it. And yeah, just went that way. But I thought that I had been in some cool recording situations with some great players, and not to take anything away from anybody that I worked with before, but going down to Nashville and seeing those true studio guys like do what they do, it's not a fair fight. They win.
Exactly. Let's talk about The Voice for a little bit.
Sure.
Now I watched that season. It was 2018.
Yep.
I don't remember what season that would have been.
15, season 15, I believe.
Okay. I watched that season and you came up and excuse me, you did your blind audition and Blake turns around and then Jennifer Hudson turns around, which quite honestly was a shock for me because I figured if anybody would have turned around, it might have been Kelly Clarkson, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
you
have an answer
went with
for
Blake.
that.
Okay. All right. Well, give me the answer for that. I want to see the answer
So
for that.
I gotta
Hear
go
it.
back. I gotta go back a little bit and explain some of how that stuff works. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but it's not a big deal.
Uh-huh.
So when I went out there for the blind auditions, there was like, I don't know if it was maybe 120, 140 potential contestants out there, including me. And you're out there for a month rehearsing with the band for your blind audition. And they're training you on how to do interviews, and they're building backstories and all these things. And you might not get a chance to sing even because there's 48 spots on teams and there's 140 people trying to get on. And so, I mean, they do these auditions over multiple days, and it's the first 2 or 3 days those teams are going to be full. And so if you get pulled it's just a random selection. I think that's what they say. I don't know how it exactly works, how they pick who goes first, but if you get pushed towards the back of the lot, the teams could very well be full by the time you get there. And so then it's just better luck next time. And so when I got up there, I was on the third day of auditions. Towards the end of the day, there was 2 spots left on teams. Blake had 1 and Jennifer Hudson had 1 spot. Kelly's team and Adam's team were both full.
Okay.
But they don't share that,
Right.
So Kelly and Adam, like, what they didn't show, I mean, on TV, they were like, yeah, we would absolutely turn for you, but our teams are full, So I think Jennifer Hudson, I think she turned because she's she's from Chicago, and that's a blues city, and I guess Stevie Ray Vaughan, a little blues song there, so yeah, so I guess maybe that's why, or maybe she was just desperate to fill that last spot. I don't know.
She thought it's getting close to the end of the day, and I've got nobody left, so I'm just going to turn and hope he goes with me.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
I mean, Blake turned pretty quick.
He did. He turned when I hit my first like guitar riff thing on there.
Right.
Yeah.
What was the feeling that you had, the initial feeling when Blake turned around?
Adrenaline / relief, because I mean, so it was a really, really big and hard decision for me to go out there and do that. I've got a family with young kids at home at the time, and and our income was my music, even back then, and it was not as much money as you need to be able to take a month off and go to LA.
Right.
And
I heard you had to cancel like 60 shows in order to do that.
It was just a bump over 90.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Just a bump over 90 shows I had to cancel to do that. Which was terrifying for me because, I didn't have this big nest egg saved up. I didn't have money to live on if I don't make money for a few months. And, so that was my initial response was I'm not going to do it. So I got invited out for the auditions. I didn't go to any open call audition or whatever. They found videos they have scouts, that scour the internet and look for talent that they think would be a good fit. And then they reached out to me. And so initially I just told them, yeah, I don't think I can go to LA for a month. I've got kids to feed and rent to pay. And it didn't make sense for me. And then I talked to family and, a bunch of people, and everyone's like, well, just do everything you can to try to make it happen. And so I booked as many shows as I possibly could, just ran myself ragged and saved up every penny I could, because I had about 4 months to prepare for that.
Right.
But the hard part was, I've got these all these shows booked for the summer at these places that have been booking me for years, and I've got good relationships with all these bar owners and venue owners, and now I've got to cancel all these shows for the year,
Right.
and I'm not allowed to tell them why.
Right.
And so that was a weird position to be in. There was only 2 shows that I came back and played because I told the producers that I absolutely couldn't do it if I couldn't come back and do these 2 shows, and it was 2 weddings that I had booked that summer. And
Mhm.
the reason why I held my ground so big on those is because both of those weddings picked their wedding date based around my schedule. And so
Right.
I was like, I am not backing out of that.
Right.
So I had
Now,
to
was one of
fly.
the
I had to fly
weddings?
back on my day. Yeah.
Let me see here. Where did I write that at? Was that Cody and Hannah?
No, that was
Was that
after. That was after the fact. Yeah.
after? Okay.
Yeah, that was after. But that was a really cool wedding too.
Yeah. Now, if you don't, and unless you research this, you may not know, but a couple by the name of Cody and Hannah. Cody was serving in the Navy and had seen you oversee, or he had
Yeah.
to. I think you were doing a show, and he had to be. He had to work that night.
Yeah. So he couldn't come to the show.
So he couldn't come. And then you guys were pretty close in proximity. They're from Wisconsin, and they've been
Yep.
following you and stuff. And then Hannah reached out to your people and got in touch, and y'all got everything hooked up. And it was really cool to see. I thought that
Yeah.
was great to do that.
It was
Um,
it was super cool. And we got to shoot all that video around it. And Quick
mhm.
Trip, the gas station Quick Trip up here, they sponsored it
Uh-huh.
for us to do that. They hired like the video crew because we were like, this is such a cool thing that I wanted to share it. And it was
Right.
that's by far my highest performing video ever too. But yeah, it was just such a cool thing. We're from 10 miles apart in Wisconsin. And
Wow.
then we ended up on the same military base in, I can't remember where it might have been Jordan.
Hmm.
Yeah, in Amman, Jordan. And we ended up on the same base. And then he had to work the night that we were there playing. So he couldn't come to the show.
That's so crazy, though.
I
And
know.
you did not know them at all prior to
No,
that.
not a bit. Nope, never met him.
But they had been they knew of you because they'd been to your shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's so weird how that works, that they never would have said, "Hey, we're just from 10 miles up the road," and then all of a sudden here you are, in another country and performing, and this guy unfortunately can't make it.
I know.
But the video for that was really good. I saw the video, and I know it's been a few years. But it was really cool. I think it was a couple of years on that one.
Yeah, I think that's 2 years ago. Yeah, 21. Summer of 21, I think.
Yeah, I looked
Yeah.
at a lot of stuff this afternoon, and another thing that I liked was in reference to the military thing. You performed a lot in the Middle East and in Africa
Yep.
for the troops and stuff. Your dad served in the military. He was an MP, I believe. Your grandpa
Yep.
was in the military. You had uncles that were in the military and stuff.
Yep.
So a very military centric family, I guess, is the best way to put
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly weren't raised like, on bases and stuff like that, but I mean, just raised with a big respect and understanding for it. We'd go to the Memorial Day service at the local cemetery, and like my dad would, he'd boys pay attention, like this is serious stuff, like you need to know the sacrifices people have made. And so he kind of instilled that in us when we were really young. And so when the opportunity came to go and perform over there, that was a no-brainer for me. And that was my first time ever being on an airplane, was going to the Middle East.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you on a commercial jet, or they put you in like one of the big C-131s, or?
No, we went commercial. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I remember my first time on a airliner, like it was last year, because it was.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I've been in private planes. My dad had a friend that flew private planes, but I'd never been on a commercial plane. And my wife and I flew out to Utah for about 4 days, and it was very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
the power those things have is unreal.
Oh yeah.
That takeoff, it just never stops. It's just straight power. It's so cool.
Yeah. And we got up into a storm. We had to fly through a storm. I was not happy about that at all.
No, I wouldn't like that either.
I was a little bit more nervous than what I thought I would be.
The only time I got like really like sweaty hands on a flight was on those long international flights. They've got that screen on the back of the seats, you know, and you can see your flight map.
Right.
And I looked, and we were like dead middle of the Atlantic Ocean, 30,000 feet above the water. And I'm like, that's freaky.
Right. It's like
there's nothing. There's nothing out there.
Right. And if this thing goes down, ain't nobody gonna get it to us very quick either, because there's nobody there.
Nope.
So before I get into some other stuff, I do have a part of the show that I like to get a little goofy with and a little crazy with.
Yeah.
And so I want to get into that real quick, okay, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
All right. So the setup on that did not turn out the way I wanted to after I thought about it, because I had a totally different setup in mind. But I do want to ask you a question. How long did it take you to grow your hair like that? You got long
man. Hair. I got a bad haircut when I was like 19, and then I quit.
I heard that you had a crew cut.
For a long time, I did. Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, in high school and everything, I couldn't grow a beard or nothing. You know, I had short hair, clean face, and I just, I think it was in college for sure. You know, that rebellious spirit of being out of the house for the first time in your life, and you can do whatever you want. And I was like, I'm gonna grow my hair out, and then it just kind of, it stuck, and now I was on TV like this, and this is what I look like.
Right. And I think if I remember right, there was one point where you were. Actually, I don't. Maybe not. Chris Stapleton was mentioned during something.
Oh, yeah. So when I recorded my first song, so I looked like this before I knew who Chris Stapleton was.
Right.
And when I recorded my first song in the studio in Nashville, he was in there singing before I was using the studio. And so he walked out through the lobby and just like quick head nod. He was on his way out. I was on my way in. No clue who he was. You know, he was not famous for the common people. You know, he was very well known in Nashville because he was such a big songwriter. But yeah, just that passing, you know, it's kind of crazy. 10 years ago. Yeah.
He didn't stop and say anything like, wow, it's my younger brother, my long lost younger brother, or anything like that.
Just me and a buddy were in Nashville, and we both were just like, holy crap, that's like a bigger version of me.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, you got one thing that I like in your singing, you don't have like a complete Chris Stapleton voice. But you've got that, you know, that kind of a nuance in some part of the gravelly stuff. I mean, a lot of the stuff, like on the voice, I can tell a lot of your influences are Southern rock and classic rock.
Absolutely.
You know, because that was the gist of what you did on The Voice. Primarily was a lot of that stuff. I know they had you do other stuff, but for the most part, what you did. And you came you came in what? Runner up, was that it? You
second place. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I know that the contract, I've heard the contract that they give you is not very desirable. I probably shouldn't say that, but
it's not. But I mean, The Voice in particular, you know, none of these TV shows have really exercised those contracts in a long time. They just don't do anything with the artists that are on there anymore. Which is kind of unfortunate because it could be a good thing. But yeah, those contracts aren't good. But I mean, back in the day when they enforced those contracts, that also got you a Carrie Underwood, So yeah, it might not have been great right away, but it worked out. It's
Right. We've got a friend that won a national contest. It was through Cumulus, and it was Nash Next. And she was down in Nashville, and we went down to watch her, and she won. And one of the big labels, I won't mention their name,
yeah.
but they have a lot of gears and cogs and moving parts. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps, but it doesn't help me, I'm sure. But she was supposed to have a 1-year contract, and out of that 1 year, she got one single recorded, and they only pushed it to Cumulus Radio.
Yeah.
And this girl she's really good. She writes a lot of good songs. She's from our hometown. But I was the first radio interview she ever did, and we've supported her since day one.
Very cool.
And she does have a lot of really good music. She's in her and her husband and now 2 children. She just had a baby about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. May not even been that long. But they live in Florida, and she does a lot of shows down in there. But she just, I mean, great songwriter. So, I mean, her writing alone, if you listen to lyrics or you listen to the writing, which a lot of people don't do, they want the feels of the song. Right. They don't pay attention to the words. But if you listen to the writing of her songs and her craftsmanship, she's amazing. She really is.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff happens with record labels sometimes, which is unfortunate. I know guys personally that have gotten record deals and they've recorded a full record that they're super proud of, but they don't own it. The record label owns it, and it's never coming out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the
like
downside.
Yeah, but with today's social media and all that, I mean, look at everybody's been beating the same dead horse lately, but I mean, Oliver Anthony, look at that. I mean, that song on a record label would have never been released.
No.
And look at what it did. I mean, it just took over everything.
Right.
Now, you can argue if it's the best song ever or if it's just the right time, whatever. It doesn't matter. It works. And
right.
Yeah.
And I mean, he even turned down an $8 million deal after the fact.
I know. I know it. It won't take him long to make that $8 million back.
Right, exactly. And I don't know the details of what that deal was, or what the details were, but it could have been that he felt like a lot of people do, that even though it was $8 million, it just wasn't what he wanted. Was the $8 million, wasn't it an advance? Was it, actual cash he was going to get? There's so many ways that
knows?
And we could sit here and talk about the downfalls of Nashville.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the record deals, they say sign a $500,000 record deal. Okay, they're going to write you a check for $500,000.
Right.
And now, but you're not getting paid again until they recoup that money.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying it's not all doom and gloom. There's nothing wrong with having a small piece of a really, really big pie.
Right.
There's
right.
There's a give and take for it, for sure.
Right. And especially, I mean, my dad always told me, nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
Yep.
So if you go in with nothing and you don't get anything out of it, then you're in the same position. But if you go in with nothing, yeah, they do offer you. Yeah. And then they do offer you a little bit, then you come out ahead. And granted, you do have to pay it back. You're not getting your concert ticket sales. You're not getting your streaming royalties, which we all know the bad thing that can be.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you don't see that stuff because, like you say, they're going to recoup their money first and foremost.
Yeah, they are.
Well, they give you $1 million bus, and they give you this, and they give you that, and
sometimes artists fail. Record labels don't seem to ever fail. So,
right.
I mean, There's a reason that
Again,
they're all still around.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, one question that another one of these that I like to pose to a lot of artists, because I mean, you as artists, you guys do pay attention to other artists that are pretty much in the same area. If you're an independent, or if you're kind of, like a minor league label, or whatever, you guys pay attention to those people around just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, who is one artist that you feel is not getting the following, or they're not getting the recognition that they deserve
Mm.
for what they put out?
There's this guy's he's not even a country artist. He's a friend of mine from Texas.
Mhm.
Um, Mitchell Ferguson. He's like alternative rock, but he's an incredibly good songwriter and a crazy good singer. He's got an awesome band, and he's like doing everything right. And I think it's just a matter of time until some of his stuff's gonna pop. And but it hasn't happened yet. But um, I think that once the right people see his stuff, it'll be a big game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
With that being said, do you feel like that independent artists and other genres outside of country have a harder ladder to climb, a steeper ladder to climb, if you will, than what country artists do?
It could be. I could see it both ways though, because the country world is pretty saturated right now too. There's a lot of new country songs every day,
Yeah.
so it's a lot to break through and kind of get your stuff to be the thing that people gravitate towards. It's tough. It's really hard.
Right. And it is, um and and the way country is going now, to me, this is what I'm hearing. It's kind of that shift back to 90s, uh late 80s, 90s country. We're walking away from like the 2010s and stuff like that, the bro country or whatever. It's kind of getting
Yeah.
back to the, some people call it traditional, some people call it neo traditional, some people call it, yester country. It's whatever, it's country,
Yeah.
but more
I would love
steel,
to hear.
like
Yep.
and that kind of stuff.
I would love to hear more stuff like, I would love to hear some more Brent Mason on some more new records, that kind of
Mm.
thing. And then you've got this whole other genre of country, which is like Morgan Wallen. I mean,
Yeah.
that's its own thing entirely. There's no one doing exactly what he's doing, and obviously what he's doing is, you know, people love it.
Yeah. I don't even know how to classify that.
It's like
What kind of
I don't know.
label?
I don't know.
Uh,
But
I
the
see.
country genre has always been changing.
Oh yeah,
So I don't
yeah.
know what to call it. Is that the direction that country's going? I don't know, because there was a lot of people from I wasn't around, or I was really young, so I don't remember it. But a lot of people, now that are saying like Morgan Wallen, that's not country, whatever. Uh,
Hmm.
a lot of people were saying that about Garth Brooks in 1990,
Right,
and
right. Even,
now
I mean, George
Garth is
Strait
like
out.
throwback country. Yeah,
Yeah,
all of them.
yeah. All those grades, they said the same thing about them. Toby Keith, that's
Yeah,
not country. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, what you know, it's like, if you want to say it's not country, then my first question to a lot of people that I've heard say that is, okay, what's your definition of country? What do you
yeah,
think country is? And if they say, well, it's steel guitars and it's fiddles and stuff, well, all this has got that in there. There's steel guitars, there's fiddles, there's,
yeah.
well, there's no drums. Well, the drums, big deal, the drums don't make it one way or the other,
Right.
and it's, to me, country is all about the mindset as much as the music. If
100%.
that,
I couldn't agree with that more. That's there's songs that I've written that haven't come out yet, but they will. That are
Mhm.
People will probably say, "Well, that's not really a country song," and I'm like, "Well, I mean, I wrote it. I consider myself pretty country, and yeah, it's like a
Mhm.
lot of like my stuff. My favorite stuff to like write and do is like kind of like country rock,
Right.
which you could call southern rock, but I can't call it southern rock because I live northern Canada or northern Wisconsin, not too far from Canada. So I can't really call that southern rock. But I don't know. I don't like to pigeonhole like when I'm writing, like, oh, would this be country? And I just want to write music, and
Exactly.
I don't care if it's gonna have ripping guitar solos with Les Pauls or cool, clean Brent Mason, Vince Gill type guitar solos in it. It doesn't matter to me. I just like music. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, to me, and I've always said this, and I've asked artists in the past, because what I do, the way I describe country music is there's country, but it has all these subgenres. You've got country pop, and you can think of artists that fall in that. You've got the bubblegum country, and there's artists that fall in that. You've got the alternative, you've got country rock, you've got country rap. I mean, every genre you hear on the radio, country has a subgenre of that. I don't care who
Yeah.
you are, you just have to listen. But I like to ask a lot of artists, where would your music fit into that? And
Kind of
and I
all
hear what
over. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of all over the board, and like and not that I'm trying to be a copycat or anything, but I mean, like Zach Brown said it in an interview. They're like, so you're a country artist, and he's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, well, you have country songs. He's like, of course, I have country songs. I have rock songs. I have R&B songs. I have reggae songs. I have easy listening
Mhm.
songs. I have pop songs. He's like, but when I'm releasing music, I've got to click on a genre and I have to put all my songs in one bucket. And that's not really fair.
Right.
You know, um,
Yep.
I would still say I'm definitely a country artist. I have a lot of other influences. I mean, I'll play Willie Nelson and Led Zeppelin in the same set
Hmm.
because it's good music, and a lot of people out there really like just music in general.
Yeah. There. And speaking of Zach Brown, and I'm trying to think of the exact name of the band. It's got Roosevelt in it. Is it
Huh.
Brother Roosevelt?
I
Something
guess
like
I don't
that.
know.
Anyway, he put out an album with some other guys, and it was something Roosevelt. Um,
Huh.
and I've got the album, I've got the CD somewhere, and it was some of his stuff with Zach Brown Band, but
Okay.
then some of it wasn't. It was kind of like what was the owl, and what was the other?
Oh
Was
yeah.
it just the owl?
Um
Was the album that he put out?
The Owl was one album, and then he did an album with Dave Grohl as well, the Grohl Sessions.
Hmm. Hmm.
That one's really cool too. That's like an EP. I think it's 5 or 6 songs, and then
Yeah, and
into was it
this one
Into
reminds
the
me a lot
Woods or
of.
something?
Yeah, I think there's something like that. The
Yeah.
latest one he put out.
Yeah.
But the owl to me had a lot of what I would call kind of like eclectic country on it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, the first time I heard it, I was like, "What is this?" But now I really
Yeah,
like it.
yeah, yeah. It was nothing like the early days of Zach Brown.
Not at all. No. No.
Um, you know, chicken fried and Southern
Yeah.
ground, and um,
Yeah.
I have to say, speaking of Southern ground, one opportunity I missed. Well, I didn't miss it. I just couldn't afford the several millions of dollars it was. But when he put Southern Ground Studios up for sale,
Oh yeah.
I almost cried. I thought, man, I would love to be able to keep that. I mean, that place is just, it's a church. I think it used to be a Nazarene church or something
Yeah.
that he fashioned into the studios. And I mean, I don't know who got it. I hope they saved it, whoever it was that bought it.
Hopefully
I
they
can't.
did. Yeah. It's
Um,
probably
but
apartments.
yeah, they probably already knocked it down by now and turned it into
Yeah.
a high rise or something.
One of those weird buildings with like 4 different colors of siding on it.
Right. Exactly. That's the scary part about it. I mean, or turn it into a 3D printer, a bunch of 3D
Right.
printer tiny houses. I saw something
Yeah,
about
who
that.
knows?
Good grief. But you've put out. I mean, you've got some great music. I'm just going back over real quick to make sure I didn't. Oh, I did want to hit one other thing because you brought this up a while ago. Before I get on to
Yeah.
where to find the music, Quick Trip.
Yeah.
you are you are, and maybe I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, you are like just, as we say in the South, pert near obsessed.
Yeah.
What's the fascination with Quick Trip?
I mean, well, it's a cool company because it's a family owned company. They're not public. It's private owned. Um, they give 40% of their 40% of their pre-tax profits back to their employees.
Oh, wow.
They treat people really well, and they're headquartered in Wisconsin, and it's just kind of that local tie. And then I guess without going into too much detail, I work with them too. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
the reason I asked is we have Quick Trip, but they also go by QT because it's quick spelt with a Q, where
Oh
yours, the
yeah.
one that's around you, is KW
Yep.
Quick that way.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if there was I don't know if there's a connection or what, but
There's not an affiliation. No, they've got, so there's the Quick Trips with the Q up in Iowa, I think too. And
mhm.
so the Quick Trip company that is in Wisconsin has stores in Iowa too, but they have to call them Quick Star because there was already a Quick Trip there. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a funny thing. They're everywhere up here. I mean, like there's the bigger town that's near us is like 7,000 people,
Mhm.
and there's 3 Quick Trips there.
Wow.
So I mean they're everywhere, and they're like a gas station, but they also have like groceries, and so I mean it's just kind of
Right.
your catch all for everything.
They're really neat. I mean, even the when we go to St. Louis, we travel up I-55, and about the halfway point, we stop at a Quick Trip, and that's
Yep.
where we get out. And you go in, you do your business, you grab a bite to eat. They've got the rollers, and they've got a
Yep.
deli and all that stuff. And I mean, everything looked like, along the same lines. I'm not going to say they looked alike, but they look along the same lines as far as what they offer.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved when you were in there and you're posing as a new employee,
Oh yeah.
and you tell the lady, because she looks at you, and then you tell her, no, I'm a cousin to Chris Kroeze. And she goes, oh, okay. And then you tell her, well, his mother is my mother.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could just see that plane taking off, going way over
Yeah.
her head, and then
What?
finally it just drops.
Yeah.
That was awesome. I mean, that was so good.
That
Uh,
one, it took some convincing for her to let us use that, but
oh yeah,
yeah, she was like, "Oh, that's embarrassing," and I'm like, "It's funny, I promise. Everyone's just, I'm messing with you." So yeah, that was funny. There was a lot of
it was.
people that knew me right away. Like I had some buddies that worked for like the power line companies around here. Like they walked in, they were on break grabbing lunch or something, and they
Uh-huh.
walked in, and then they looked at me in this Quick Trip uniform, and then they're like, "Nope, I'm out of here. There's cameras in here."
I do think you're a great salesman when it comes to cheeseburgers, though, bacon
Yeah,
cheeseburgers.
yeah, absolutely. I
The
honestly
selling.
can't remember what all we did.
Oh, it was great because you're like telling them, it's got bacon, and that was like your total sales line. It's got bacon. And people were
Yeah,
like scooping them up. Hey, it's a cheeseburger with bacon on it. Like they never knew what a bacon cheeseburger was.
yeah.
And it was great. And then when you're out, you and your buddy, I don't know who it was, but you're
Oh,
out playing football in the parking lot and playing cornhole.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you're talking about, you said, "Oh, I'm going to grab cheese curds," and so you put a cheese curd in your mouth, and then according to the film, you spit it, and he catches one, and
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know who
Those
came
are
up with those lines.
well, Ryan, my buddy, he does a lot of that. He's a full-time like social media guy, and so I just do some videos with him here and there. And a lot of that stuff he writes a lot of the ideas, and then I don't like to I'm really bad at following a script, so I just kind of wing it.
Okay,
Yeah.
and but they're great. If you get an opportunity to check them out, folks, you got to go check them out. They're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Uh, just Google or YouTube search Chris Kroeze, Croeze. I mean Kroeze.
Yep.
Um, and it'll get you right there. So where can they find the music? Because I really want folks to hear more of what you got to
Yeah.
offer.
Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Google Play. I mean, anywhere you can stream music. Some of it are it's on the touch tunes at the bars. I mean, um, anywhere you can stream music or find it and listen to anything, it's there. I select all the boxes and where I want it delivered. So I mean, I try to put it everywhere I can.
Good deal. So go check out Chris's music, and I'm excited to hear what else you got coming down the pipe. I know you're working on some new stuff, and I can't wait to hear
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I've got a
Um,
new song. I just recorded vocals on 2 new songs this last week. Um One of them that I wrote with Phil Vassar.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm really excited for that one to come out. I opened for him at a festival a few years ago, and he watched my set, which is rare for the headliner to watch the opener. And
Hmm.
we hung around afterwards, and he came up and told me he really liked our stuff, and popped his number in my phone and said, "Get a hold of me. I want to write songs." And I was like, "Okay." And so I texted him my name and stuff, and then I didn't reach out to him right away. And then all of a sudden, my wife and I were watching TV one night. My phone was ringing. She's like, "You gonna answer that?" And I'm like, "No, we're watching TV. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm not gonna answer my phone." And she like tossed my phone over to me. She's like, "Answer the phone. It's Phil Vassar." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And he was like, just calling to check in, catch up, and be like, "Hey, man, I really want you to come down and write songs." So I've done that a few times now, and it's super fun. And I don't know if you've really dove into his writing career, but I mean, he wrote a lot of hits. Like a
Yeah.
lot, like the Jody Messina stuff. He wrote some Tim McGraw hits, songs for Black Hawk, all over the board. Just fantastic songwriter.
Oh, yeah. And most people don't know that about him. They know his stuff, but they don't know what he's
Yeah.
done for us. And
Yep.
he is a great guy. I hung out with him at a show that we had him come in and headline, and we were
He's about as
sitting.
nice as it gets
Oh yeah, we're
as
at
far
that
as that
point. Our
level.
youngest
Yeah.
daughter was playing softball. His daughter was playing softball. She was in college playing.
Yep.
We're setting up eating lunch. It was my wife and I, and we were about to head down to the stage. And he goes, "You guys ate anything yet?" And we're like, "Well, we're just going to grab something and go." He goes, "No, sit down, grab you something to eat." So we
That's
sat there
awesome.
through lunch and just talked about kids and grandparents and
Yep.
being country music and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Super cool. And like he just invited me to his house in Nashville. This guy that he really doesn't know, and really there's not a lot of upside for him, to go write songs with me. Super cool, super nice. I got to meet his mom when all the COVID stuff went down. He drove out to North Carolina, where he's from, and went and picked his mom up and moved her in with him. So she lives with him in Nashville, and he's just a great dude.
Yeah. Yeah, super cool guys. So that's a great connection right there. I mean,
Yeah.
just with, like you say, all the hits that he's written through the years and the stuff that he's written, um, is just, you can't go wrong.
No, it's awesome.
So, well, again, go check Chris out on all the streaming platforms. He's got a lot of stuff out there for you to check out. New stuff on the way. We'll see what happens. I can't wait to find out more and keep an eye out for new songs.
Yeah.
Crushing Cans will be on Before Nashville's playlist after the show's over. So
Oh, very cool.
I try to put all the songs of the artists onto the playlist So we'll get that put on so you guys can go listen to it there. And of course, that's going to help Chris out as far as numbers and stuff like that, as we always like to help him out. And so do that. Go to his website, which is, I had it up here a while ago and I took it off.
ChrisKroezemusic.com.
Yeah, ChrisKroezemusic.com. Remember, Kroeze is spelled Kroeze. All right.
Yep. And then there's always, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all those things. I don't know how to use half of them. I know Instagram and Facebook. The other ones I post on it and I don't really know what I'm doing.
That's me. I don't have a clue half the time. I don't even post on TikTok, but I have them. And a lot of times it's just snippets from the show. But I mean, it's unbelievable. If I post more on there, I'm sure I would get, more followers and stuff, because it's really well.
That's a challenge for me too, because it's like it's a numbers game. You just got to keep putting stuff out there. But for me, social media is just soul sucking, and I don't like it, but I do it anyway. So
absolutely, I get enough of it every day because I have to scroll through it at work, and it's like, okay, I got what artists can I talk about? Like today, I don't know if you're a football fan. We're huge Kansas City fans and Kansas City Chiefs fans, and right now the whole
Taylor Swift thing.
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. And so I had to talk about that, and her and Brittany Mahomes. Wow. Sorry, Jason. Brittany Mahomes' little handshake thing that they did and all that.
Yeah.
It was, embarrassing for the state.
She's selling a lot of tickets for the NFL right now.
Yes, she is. If she can make as much money for the NFL as she's making off of her Eras Tour movie, I think the NFL would be happy.
I think
she's
so
grossed
too.
like $236 million off of that thing so far.
That's insane.
In 2 weeks.
That's insane.
Yeah. And so
I would work for 2 weeks and then I would disappear and I'd check in from time to time.
I'd take about 8 weeks off and then check back in, then take another 8 weeks, check back in.
They'd be like, where are you going to go? And I'd be like, I don't know, somewhere without internet.
Right. Wherever I land.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm just going to tell the pilot, take off and you land us anywhere. And if I'm driving, it's wherever we run out of gas or whatever. I don't care.
Perfect. Yep.
So you guys go check out Chris Kroeze. He's great. A lot of good stuff, man. Thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I appreciate you hanging out with me. And again, I'll look forward to seeing you and hearing more music from you. And you guys just you follow him too. Go to all of his social media and follow him and download the music. Don't just listen to it. Download it, pre-save it, all that good stuff.
All that, Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
All the stuff I get up behind the pulpit and preach every single show.
Perfect.
So, all right. Well, Chris, you have a good evening, man. I appreciate it. And until then, I'll leave you with this.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Before Nashville on all social media and listen wherever you get your podcast. Tune in again for another country star of tomorrow on Before Nashville with George Davis. I'm Kevin Casey on behalf of Worldwide Pants. Have a great night.